Dr. Stewart, man, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
I'm excited. We were just talking. This is your first podcast.
Yep.
I like it.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, but my first time being on one, so
Nice.
I'm excited to be here.
What are some of your favorite podcasts that you listen to?
I'm a big sports junkie, so
Okay.
so Lakers Nation.
Lakers.
Yeah, a lot
Okay.
of Lakers podcasts.
Okay.
So I kind of ride the ups and downs of the Lakers season, and then Steelers. I listen to Steelers podcasts.
Okay. Are you from where are you from originally?
Originally Franklin, PA, so an hour and a half north of Pittsburgh, and then I went to undergrad in Pittsburgh, and then moved to Atlanta for Chiro school, and further south I went.
Okay. So where does the Laker affiliation come in? Just rooting for a
Just
good team?
LeBron. It's I've just always been a LeBron guy. So wherever he goes, I've just tracked him along. But
I get that, right?
Yeah,
that is one thing I love about sports is like the story behind it, or just like really it's like the story behind the team, the story behind the individual athlete and stuff, and like some of the stuff they've gone through. It's all really fascinating.
Man. I appreciate greatness. Like,
yes,
even looking at Tom Brady.
Yeah,
as a Steelers guy, I used to hate him, and I mean, because every year he would get us in the AFC Championship, but seeing him come to Tampa, that was a really cool moment. And I just wanted to see him win more and more Super Bowls, because I like watching people achieve greatness and get more and more records and things like that. So
yeah, it's interesting because I feel like the majority of sports fans, like unless you're like, so Tom Brady is that example. Most people probably hated Tom Brady because he won all the time.
Yep.
Right.
Exactly.
But it is, I do agree with you. Like, to see, like, I'm always rooting for that person. Like, especially when they're at that level, it's like, what's one or two more?
Yeah,
like,
it's cool.
let's just go for it.
Yeah.
You know? So it is cool to root for that. Yeah. I like that. All right. So you mentioned in something about timing when it comes to like starting a business. Like we had talked before, you have experience in a couple different businesses, and you've been a chiropractor now for 9 years.
Yeah. Yep.
In your experience, like timing for starting a business, like what does that mean to you?
So I think I had mentioned before, so right out of school, I tried to start a fitness company. It was called Alchemy Athletics, and kind of rushed into it, was throwing money that I didn't have at the time, especially coming out of school, but throwing money into a big marketing company and trying to really diversify and get into apparel and supplements and meal prep, and tried to take it on way too quick. But I think in terms of business, you can have passion for something and you can have the drive to do it, but you also have to know when it's the right time to jump in. Because if you can fully dream something up, that's one thing, but you have to have the follow through. And I think a lot of times people jump into these things and they jump from one thing to the next because initially that drive is there, but once you realize, man, this is a little harder than I expected, your drive starts to wane a little bit. So I think, it's waiting for the right opportunity. And in terms of starting my clinic, a lot of people don't realize, but I kind of moonlighted for the first 6 months of having my clinic. So I worked for someone else doing a similar or basically a similar style of practice.
Okay.
So I was able to support my family with the money from that, while in the evenings I would hop over and go see patients at night. So it was kind of a crazy setup. And that was actually, I started my practice about a month or so before COVID hit.
Okay.
So speaking of timing, if a couple months had gone by, there's no way I would have started up at that point.
Right.
So luckily I did, and I was able to get through that. We were an essential business, so that definitely
stayed open. Yeah.
But so it was really just having something stable while getting into your own thing, I think, is the best advice. Like you don't want to just have nothing to fall back on, because sometimes things don't work out. Right. So I think starting as a side hustle really really getting it to a certain point and then jumping ship from there, I think is the best point.
Yeah. I I I would agree and disagree. I think, I think also it takes like an extreme like passion and work ethic,
Oh, for
right? Like
sure.
how many hours did you put in like doing both,
Yeah.
right? To balance that. And if you're not able to do that, maybe you have to look yourself in the mirror and like really ask yourself that question. Like,
yeah.
can I balance both of these like to the capacity that it needs to, like where the one that I really want to work like is able to grow.
Yeah. And
you know?
I think you're right there. You can stunt your growth a little bit because
Yeah.
if you're not fully committing to the other. So I think there is that balance there. You have to be ready to put in the work for the one that you're trying to make grow. But you have to realize that is the ultimate goal.
Right.
So there's no just kind of dipping your foot in and then, oh, I have this to fall
This
back
is too
on.
much work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on like timing as far as like starting the business? Like, is there any like, it's hard to say like when is the best time to start a business, right?
Yeah.
But like the first one, like, that you, to some degree you have to go through, you do have to go through those failures.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Maybe it's not like failing at like the entirety of the business, but maybe an aspect of it. But how do you go about like timing, like when is the right time for me to start this business or start this dream?
I think everybody has their own path.
Yeah.
Because there are so many people that they do stumble upon something very early and they decide not to, like their plan was to go to college, say. Well, they stumble upon something and that's their path. And like, I know this one signage guy that he actually did my signage in Palm Harbor. He was just a workhorse and he grew it into a multi-million-dollar company. It's crazy, but I think everybody just has their own timing, and that's what's difficult. And like you said, you're going to have failures. There are so many different things that I learned from having that fitness business in terms of branding and just using different avenues to come up with logos and all of these other branding type of things. And I would have never had that experience if I didn't fail at that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, it's a business failure in terms of financial standpoint, but you take so many lessons along the way from having those. So
yeah. I would agree. Right. And it just helps you in that next phase, that next step, whatever that is.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So growing up, like, did you always want to be a chiropractor or did you always want to own a business?
I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I definitely always saw myself having a business. In 8th grade, I had a candy store out of my locker. My mom every weekend we'd go to Big Lots and get a bunch of different candy, and I would just sell that out of my locker. So I've always had that entrepreneurial side of myself, but at that time, I thought I wanted a restaurant. I thought I wanted to be a chef.
Oh, okay.
But in terms of that avenue, I think I really liked the art and science of being a chef. I like the combinations of flavors and things like that. And I think it's the same reason why I enjoy chiropractic is it's not only the science and getting things aligned with the body, but it's the art of movement and working with other people's bodies to achieve that. So it's fluid and it's something that truly is a practice. And I like that artistic side of it. So, but in terms of, I'd say after middle school on, I thought I was going to be in the healthcare realm. It was just a matter of what particular field.
What did you like about healthcare at that age?
So my dad, growing up, he was an athletic trainer. Now he's a podorthist, so he fits orthotics and prosthetics and things like that. But he was an athletic trainer, and I was always on the sidelines growing up as the ball boy and the water boy. So it was just cool to always be around that.
So that's where like the passion for
Yeah,
sports comes in.
exactly. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, I gravitated towards helping people, and especially athletes and active populations. That was really my passion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then so getting into chiropractics, like tell us that story. Like how did you get into that?
Yeah, so with chiropractic, actually, growing up, I had never been to a chiropractor. I had certainly never thought about it as a career path. But after I graduated from undergrad, I was applying to programs and PT programs. Ended up working at a chiropractic office just in the meantime as a rehab coordinator, and had a weightlifting injury while I was working there. Lost complete strength on my left side and stabbing pain. Yeah, it was terrible. Wow. Stabbing pain in my forearm. And while I was working there, got treatment there and responded really well. And 3 months later, I was down in school for another 4 years. So it was a pretty cool, it really felt like it was my path, and everything that had happened up to that point was supposed to happen. So it was pretty cool to see it unfold.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Do you think a lot of people get into physical therapy, like to be a physical therapist or to be a chiropractor because of an injury or something? Like, do you find that common amongst?
I think so. Colleagues? I think either they grew up as an athlete and they had someone that really helped them out, or they had an injury. That seems to be a common thing.
Yeah.
I think now it is changing though, because with social media and adjustment videos being commonplace, like I talked to like my nephew and my girlfriend's daughter, they want to be chiropractors, and I think before you wouldn't have heard that as younger generations, really, unless they had a family member that was a chiropractor or something like that. But I think it's just becoming more commonplace.
Yeah. It is interesting, like the power of social media.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah. It's crazy. So during an adjustment, what's happening? What are you, I'm always amazed at like what you guys can do and how you can feel like what needs to be adjusted and that sort of stuff. So like walk me through that and like what's actually happening in the body and stuff.
Yeah. So basically during an analysis, a lot of it is, it is touch and it's feel. You're looking for the tonicity of the muscle or muscle spasm in certain areas, because whenever those vertebrae rotate, they make the muscle stick up on one side. So we're essentially, I think it's kind of a misnomer to say we're aligning the spine. A lot of times it's more so restoring motion. We're looking for fixations and ones that aren't moving, and we're trying to get motion in there. We are realigning some to a certain degree, but I think that is overstated sometimes. And it's I think a lot of the pain relief comes from restoring motion.
So you're not actually feeling for like the bones to be like the vertebrae to be aligned, right? It's more of like the muscles.
We are, but it is more so the way you're feeling that is the muscle tightness, and to some degree you're looking at range of motion of that segment, just kind of palpating and finding that. But a lot of times it's more so when we are palpating, especially if the patient's face down, we're looking for like a block in that area and one that's not moving.
Yeah. And then so I forgot what I was just going to ask you. Something about the adjustment, right? So like you, so let's say, so you find out like what area needs to be adjusted and stuff. And then like what happens, like, so you do the adjustment and then the pop and stuff, I guess kind of explain that.
Yeah.
Like,
so the popping,
because that's the whole thing about social media now, right?
Yep, exactly. Everyone loves the crack. But so what an adjustment, that noise that you hear, it's called a cavitation, but it's really just gas escaping from the fluid within that joint. So same as popping your knuckles.
Yeah.
But you can achieve, that's another thing. You can achieve an adjustment and get motion in that joint and not have it make that sound. It doesn't necessarily have to, but that is certainly an indication that it did move. But yeah, it's, everybody loves that noise and everybody loves the feeling as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be that loud.
Yep. Yep. Makes sense. And so when somebody comes in, and they, first of all, like, I know you kind of, I think chiropractic's like, generally it's like, oh, I have an injury, I need to go see a chiropractor, right? Is that changing where it's like more so centered around like, I just want to feel better, I want to live a better
I think
life?
it should be more so just increasing life force, right? Increasing motion in your body. I mean, we know with our cars, we need constant maintenance on those. And there's so much more that goes into our body. And especially these days with, I mean, stress is terrible. Everyone's inundated with stress and toxins and probably not exercising as much as they should be. So a lot of times we just need that maintenance to basically stay on our path of health, but essentially, or especially if you want to reach that next level in terms of optimizing performance, you need more than we generally give ourselves. And a lot of times I would say more pain comes about from people not moving enough rather than moving too much. So yeah, I'd say even people that go to the gym, you think about it, they're in there for maybe 2 hours out of 24 hours. And the rest of our day, we're generally either driving or sitting at a desk. So it's getting motion, being active in the gym or however you want to get your fitness, but also taking time for maintenance in terms of adjustments and soft tissue work and tending to your mind as well. Right. You need to be meditating, you need to be doing breath work, reading, and it's just, it really needs to be a multi-factor approach in order for people to reach the actual levels of health that they generally want to reach.
I've noticed that too, like about the movement, like when I, like my back seems to get more tense and tight, like the more, like if I sit still for, or even like if I'm not like actively doing something like running or in the gym or something like that, like if I go longer periods of time without doing that, like I notice like everything is like is tense. You know,
I would say honestly, I feel the most pain on those days that it's
when
basically just football all day and I'm sitting on the couch, right? It's like the next day I'm like, my gosh, this is terrible. Those are the days that I feel old. But if I'm active and I'm up and moving, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be in the gym, but it's just movement. And then if you do have a sedentary job, at least taking the time every 30 minutes or so to move around instead of just being stationary. People always ask me, what is the best posture? And there's a saying, it's the best posture is the next one. And it's because we need to constantly be in movement. So I'd say that's a big thing. If you do have like a sedentary type of job, is just move a little bit.
I've started doing that. I did it at the my other office where I was at, and it was like midday. You know, I'd be like, okay, I just need to get up and go walk outside. Right. And even like just seeing sunlight and stuff too. Like if you don't have a window, like that makes a big difference.
For sure.
Too.
Yeah. We spend way too much time indoors. It's terrible. I'm guilty of it. I mean, it sometimes it's tough, but if you can take a walk in the morning, they always say first 30 minutes of the day, if you can get sunlight, that has drastic effects on your mood and overall health. And then midday if you can get outside as well. But
massive. So additional, like beyond just the adjustment, like if someone's coming in for chiropractor work, like beyond just getting the adjustment, like is there additional work that they need to be doing? Or maybe it's like what we were just talking about, like just movement, right? In some capacity.
Movement. I mean, anything's going to help. So if they can be like I always recommend certain stretches to be doing at home, or if they do have a specific injury, then I'll give them home care in terms of exercises to be performing. But really, I mean, it's staying hydrated is big for sure. Even if you're drinking enough water, a lot of times people don't realize how much sodium they need or electrolytes. So that's another thing that's kind of coming into mainstream now is like supplementing with sea salt and things like that. So you can take in all the water you want, but if your electrolyte balance is off, you're just excreting that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So what is the best source of getting sodium? Is it just like adding salt to your water?
Yeah, I would say a good sea salt or a Celtic salt. You do want to make sure it's a good quality one though, because a
Right.
lot of them can be high in heavy metals and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but
Are there any drinks that are any like sports drinks that are good that don't have like any other harmful things in them?
there are, I would say
There's
like
so many. I don't.
yeah, like Gatorade and all the traditional ones are junk
Yeah.
basically. But there are some good ones that have come out, like the Element is a
Okay.
good one. The LMNT is the way that's spelled. But yeah, there's some good ones now. But I think honestly, just a half teaspoon to a teaspoon of like a Celtic salt or a good sea salt, and then lemon or whatever you want to flavor it with, and like a 60. I fill like a 64-ounce jug in the morning, and that's what I sip on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I try and take in at least a gallon of water, but I do the 64 ounces of that, and then I switch to
With
water
the
after
sodium.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that does it taste good? Like with the salt in there, or with the lemon, and balances it out?
It balances out a little bit. I mean,
Yeah. You
I've
get used to it?
yeah, I've acquired a taste. I honestly, yeah, I prefer that over just water for sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Really?
yep.
Have you always been that way? Or
No,
okay.
no,
So you just adjusted to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've just seen the benefits. I mean,
Oh, okay.
for sure. Like I notice a big difference if I drink all of that before going into the gym. My strength is it's
Oh,
probably 2 to 3 times,
okay.
or it feels like it anyways, or my energy levels are definitely increased. So
Okay.
yeah,
What other benefits do you notice, or is that's the big one?
that's definitely I would say the biggest one. But I mean, in terms of cardiovascular health and just aging more gracefully, keeping your joints lubricated,
Yeah.
yeah, everything that we know hydration is important for in terms of, I mean, you look at athletics, if they're not hydrated, you're going to have cramping and things
Right.
like that. So
Right.
if you kind of dial that back and just look on more of a small scale, I mean, if you're chronically dehydrated, like I've had some patients on their intake form, what do you intake in a day? It's 3 to 4 cups of coffee and a Coke at night. I'm like, how are you living? It just doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I mean, I think over time you start to notice
that's gonna catch up.
yeah,
Right.
you can't do that forever and expect to be healthy.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's like the joke in my wife's family is like none of them drink water,
Really?
and it's like I've tried, like I bought her like different containers and stuff to take with
Yeah.
her to work, and she gets busy or whatever, and she's got a busy schedule, so she forgets or whatnot,
Yeah.
right? But I'm like, how did you go the whole day without taking one sip of
Yeah.
water? I'm thirsty just to talking about it right
Yeah,
now.
I don't get it, but yeah, I would say so. In addition to adjustments, being mindful of keeping active, doing gentle stretching, staying hydrated. It's all little things. I mean, we talked before. One of my favorite books is The Compound Effect by
Yeah.
Darren Hardy,
Yeah.
and he talks about how it's no one big thing. There are very few people that get lucky enough to strike it big by doing one huge thing. I mean, looking at baseball, it's singles instead of home runs. Like it's repetition over time that brings about success, whether that's in health or fitness or finance. So yeah, I think terms of the compound effect, he just talks about consistency over time.
Yeah.
And if you dive into anything and it's not sustainable, it's not going to work out.
Right. And that goes both ways too. Like if you're drinking, all the caffeine and stuff, like your compound effect is going the opposite way.
No kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great book. And I think we talked about this before, right? But like it is really that simple, but it's also like, that's the hardest part.
Yes.
Is the consistency.
Yeah. And a lot of the things seem so simple that people are like, no, that can't work.
It can't be. Yeah.
It can't work. They think it has to be something huge and esoteric in order to achieve their goals. But really it's just staying consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. So I want to go back to like you starting your business. Like, how did you get into that? Cause you didn't start this business right out of school.
No. And I was fortunate. I had great mentors along the way. Like I started at a clinic up in Claremont, working with Olympic athletes and families as well. But he worked a lot with athletes, and so good experience there. But I was really just waiting on my friend's practice to be built out. So he wanted to take care of more of the functional medicine side of things, just looking at patients' nutrition and blood work and things of that nature. And I took care of the chiropractic side, but the practice wasn't built out as quickly as he had anticipated. So I worked up in Claremont for 6 months. But yeah, so I worked with my friend, which was a great experience just to see a practice start from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then from there, hopped over with a friend of a friend, and really had a good experience working at a stem cell clinic and seeing a completely different style of practice, but also like a multi-clinic style of practice, and basically saw the grind and the work that they put in the systems. That's the big thing, is just making sure that your systems are in place, because if you start out with terrible systems, it may work initially, but as you grow, it's impossible to scale if you don't have the right systems in place. So
yeah. So all those different places, were they, besides the first one, which you wanted to work with your friend or whatever, but were they intentional? Like, okay, I want to get experience here, I want to get experience here, or just kind of happened to be?
No, it just happened to be, really.
Yeah.
I just liked the opportunity that each of them presented at the time. And I was able to take different information from all of those. And actually after the stem cell clinic, I ended up working with another practice, which was more the style of practice that I ended up opening, which that's another great key of or piece of advice is, I think the quickest way to achieve your goals is to see how it's done.
Yeah.
So and this may not be possible for everybody, but if you're able to get into a business and work for somebody that you're like, man, this is exactly what I want, learn on their dime. I mean, before you jump ship and go do your own thing, because it's invaluable to really have that.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I think about that, like in my starting out in real estate, I, for whatever reason, didn't want to join a team.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to do this myself and figure it out. Right. But it's, the growth is a lot slower and more painful probably doing it that way. Looking back, I probably, I don't know if I would have changed anything, I go back and forth, right? Like sometimes I'm like, maybe if I knew of the team that was like doing, like you said, doing the way things that I wanted to operate and stuff, then that would have been different. But also, I was new into real estate. I didn't know how I really wanted to operate. So to be able to select a team is challenging in that regard too. So, but yeah, I would agree. Like if you can learn from somebody else, especially as a business owner, that is so valuable.
And the thing is, like in your case, even if you don't know, okay, this is exactly what I want, getting in with them then you're going to know pretty quickly,
Right.
all right, I would do this differently.
Yeah.
I could do this better.
Yeah.
So then jumping off on your own, I mean, you're already you're gonna have some kind of template because you don't want to do it this way, or you can do this better. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. What about the systems? Like how, I mean, yeah, I would agree. Like systems are everything. Like, is there any tips you have around that, or any advice? Like, at what point do you like, okay, maybe it's like once you have everything dialed in and you know, like this is the way I want to operate moving forward, then you start building systems.
Yeah, well, I think it starts from day one, but again, if you're able to work for someone first,
Yeah,
that
you have kind of
helps
a
you
blueprint.
implement those from day one. Otherwise, yeah, you're learning I mean, especially if you have a staff, you're learning along with your staff, and that's going to happen anyway. But if you at least have an initial idea of like a set of systems that you're going to input, then you can change those over time. Whereas otherwise, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants. But
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So you mentioned, I think we talked about this before, like balance, right? Like you have family, you have kids, you're starting a business, and you have two office locations, right?
Yes.
How do you balance all that? And like, what are some of your strategies for managing all of it?
I think it's really preparation. I mean, like in terms of nutrition, if I was just to go about my day and just kind of see where it took me, there's no way that I would be able to eat healthy, because things are always going to get in the way of that. So I make 3 to 4 shakes either the night before or the morning of. I use a meal prep company, which I know that's not possible for everybody, but you can at least meal prep, and people can take care of meal prepping for 3 days and do that a couple times a week. So even if I have a lunch scheduled with like a business lunch, I still take my meal prep.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, because I learned, man, there's so many times things get canceled.
Yeah.
So
true.
How many times is that going to happen where I'm not prepared, and then you're scrambling, and now your day in terms of nutrition is thrown off. So whether it's nutrition or anything else, I think it's preparation and really being ready to take that on.
Yeah, I like that. So I think about like, okay, you're prepping, so you're prepping your meals for the week. Same thing, you're prepping your calendar for the week. Like, what does my calendar look like? Where are my appointments and that sort of stuff? What am I doing this week? You know? Yeah. I think it's a big part of it. Do you plan out your week like Sunday, or how do you go about, or is your schedule like, I mean, you have your office hours, right? So that's
I mean, so my office hours, that's going to be standard. I'd say things are pretty fluid in terms of the schedule, but there are those things that, I look ahead and I have this event for my kids, and I can kind of plan around that. But I think at least knowing ahead of time what's going to happen. Obviously, there's always going to be random things that pop up that you're not completely prepared for. But if you have a good idea, all right, these are the things that I need to achieve today, and you have those benchmarks, it makes everything so much easier. And you can really multitask in between those. If you know, all right, I need to do this, I need to do that, then that's really the way that I've found easiest to juggle things.
Yeah, I like that. And also I think it, like the mindset, right? If you identify like, okay, these are my 3 bigs today that I need to accomplish, right? Then it kind of just frees up yourself mentally. Okay, I know I've allotted time for these 3 things to be done. I know I can accomplish these, and then you feel accomplished at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, you mentioning the 3 big things, it makes me think of, there's this one video, and it's this college professor, and he has this jar, and in the jar he's planning on putting these bigger rocks, little pebbles, and then sand. And if you do those in a reverse order and you put the sand first and then the pebbles, then the bigger rocks aren't going to fit. So you have to start with the bigger rocks, and then the pebbles, and then the sand can fall around all of those. But I think that's really important, is starting with your big things and not stressing over the little things, because those can be figured out along the way, but you have to take care of the main things.
So the book over there called Traction, and that's where I heard that story.
Okay.
Is they have it in there, and they talk about it from like the business point of view of the rocks are your big items that you're working on in your business.
Yeah.
And like those are your rocks, and then the sand is the stuff that supports those those rocks, you know. And the rocks, I think they're like quarters, right? So every quarter you have a rock or a couple of rocks, right? And so they talk about that, like filling up the jar and stuff. Like you have to have those foundational pieces in there first before you can do the other stuff. So and I love that example. Yeah. So how long have you been, I know you're not from this area, but how long have you lived in this area?
Yeah. So I've been down here about 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was in Atlanta after I moved away from Pennsylvania, and then down here about 8 years.
Nice. And so I want to ask you this last question, but like, what is it that, and this is great because you've lived in different cities and different states and stuff, but what is it that you love about like living in this part of Florida?
Man, I have to say, like everybody else, probably, it's the weather. I just love, besides a typical rainy day, especially this time of year, I love just being able to know every weekend I can be outdoors if I want to.
Yeah.
Whereas up north, man, it seemed like, especially in Pittsburgh area, it's like 9 months of the year. It's either gray and gloomy or snowing. And it seems like over time, winter is longer and longer. So I think that's the big thing. And it just really affects my mood. If things are bright and I'm able to get outside, I'm going to be in a much better place.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like growing up here, I feel like I'd probably take that for granted, right? Because you just don't understand.
You don't have that comparison. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is cool that like, no, I mean, yeah, it's hot outside, like you're going to sweat and stuff, right? It's not maybe not the most comfortable for some people, but the fact that you can get outside for 5-10 minutes, right? It doesn't have to be a long time.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like to be able to do that 365 days of the year.
It's crazy.
Like there's really not like one day where you can't get outside unless we have like a hurricane that's coming through, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing that would prevent us from being able to go outside. Yeah. That's a really good point. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. All right. So where can people, so your business, Elite Health Centers, where you guys, you have 2 locations.
2 locations. So one on East Bay in Largo, right off of 19. And then the second location in Palm Harbor is right on US 19 before Alderman.
Nice.
Yeah.
And do you have plans that you want to open up more offices or?
Eventually, but going back to where we started in terms of timing, there were a couple of, like, I thought I would have a 3rd location by now.
Yeah.
But then something would happen and it would set me back a little bit. So I'm just waiting for that opportunity. But yeah, I would like to have something over maybe in the Tampa area.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But being patient, waiting for the right time.
Exactly.
I like it. Dr. Stewart, man, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
Appreciate it.